Well, let's return now to our lead story. And President Duterte allows private companies to import COVID-19 vaccines. Now, a lawmaker is calling on the government to create a special task force to oversee the private sector's vaccine procurement. Let's now go above and beyond the headlines with Representative Ronnie Ong of the Ang Probinsyano Party-list. Congressman Ronnie, thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. It is still very unclear
evening,
right
Rico.
now to the business community what this import order at will statement means from the president. So will the private sector be allowed to procure vaccines directly from the pharma companies without going through the tripartite agreement? And if they procure directly from the pharma companies, will it be totally going to them, or will they still have to split it up with the government?
Okay, first, good evening, Rico. Thank you for having us tonight. And first, I would like to thank the President for heeding our call to hasten to fast-track the procurement of private companies with regard to vaccines. Going back to your question, because of the RA 11595 law, we still have to go through the government to form to go with the government with regard to importation of our vaccines. So that's why we're calling for the NTF to form a task force or a group to hasten the importation for our private companies.
So, Congressman, if you're asking the NTF to expedite and maybe even form a new group, what will this group be made up of? Will it still be the same faces that basically moved very slowly in procuring these vaccines from overseas, or will this new task force have new faces, including the private sector, to hasten the order or the importation of these vaccines?
Rico, I understand, and all of us are very frustrated with the slow speed on what's happening. Just like nasa fourth quarter na po tayo right now, and we're still in the procurement. Nagkakagulo pa rin tayo kung paano natin uumpisahan. And we thank again the President for heeding our call. This task force will go straight. Bibilisan na nila ang pag-import for our private companies, heeding the call of the President. We can actually work directly as through your news with the federations like PCCI, or even the Federation of Philippine Industries, that we can work directly with them para mapabilis na po yung pagkuha ng mga vaccines po natin for our private companies.
So if it still has to go through the tripartite agreement, do you think, Congressman, the procurement of the private sector, should it still be split with the government, or should it be totally theirs?
It should totally be theirs by now. Kasi nag-rush na po tayo again, fourth quarter na to. We can no longer delay this. The faster we can do this, with the help of the private sector, our economy can again recover faster. Dahil we can see our numbers, they're really, really high. And all of us feel that even what's being declared every day, it's not the real numbers, because a lot of our kababayans are not being tested even today.
But if you listen to some quarters, Congressman, they say that this order of the President is too late. It's reactionary when it should have been done months ago. No foresight, as the global vaccine supply has already been depleted. And it's unlikely, according to Congressman Salceda, that the private sector procurement will be ahead of the government's own efforts.
That's why we have to cut the red tape. Again, we're already here. We have to move on from whatever is happening right now in our country and ask the help of the private sector with regard to the procurement of our vaccines. Kasi sila naman talaga may funds, and it will be easier for them to vaccine all their employees, their people, and somehow to hasten all of this red tape that's happening in our country right now.
So much red tape, Congressman. You mentioned it several times during this interview. Has there been so much red tape because we have been too reliant on Chinese vaccines instead of the Western vaccines that came out with the third stage clinical trials and have even higher efficacy rates?
Actually, Sir Rico, if even the simple procedure like our IATF, You don't even know who's leading it. And then there's another group, NTF. And even our LGUs, we have different rules, different guidelines with regard to travel restrictions, etc., etc. So much red tape in our country. So again, we're asking the NTF to get their act together, form a group, one group, together with the private sector to hasten the procurement of vaccines for our private sector.
So, Congressman, you mentioned a very good point. No, there doesn't seem to be a comprehensive plan, synergies between the IATF, no, and the NTF. So, should there be an overhaul of these key organizations that are overseeing our COVID-19 response? Because according to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque last week, that the IATF and the NTF are made up of the best and the brightest people in the country.
But the problem, Sir Rico, there seems to be no synergy among them. We've been getting, and of course, the result shows us that it's not working. The numbers are continue climbing when our neighbors, our Southeast Asian neighbors, are not, they're slowing down the COVID system. Unlike ours, we're continually climbing. Our numbers are climbing every day. So we know that it's not working. May problema talaga tayo. And
that's it, yeah. That's it, Congressman. So the people who are leading the IATF and the NTF, they have to be reshuffled. We need to see new minds, new leadership. Who do you think should be leading the IATF and the NTF so we can have a fresh strategy to be able to attack this unseen enemy of COVID-19?
We need the private sector's help. We need to ask them, economists. Hindi naman tupad panay, we need the help of, we have to see it from outside looking in right now. Ang laki na ng problema natin. Ang taas-taas na po ng numero natin. And I agree, we have to overhaul the IATF so that we can hasten the vaccine procurement.
And Congressman, there's a point mentioned by Sergio Luis Ortiz here, no, from the Economic Confederation of the Philippines, and he wants clarified, especially with the government, that there should also be a provision that says that the government will compensate those who will experience adverse reactions to the doses procured by the private employees. It seems like that the president's statement last night did not make this clear.
I think with RA 1159, there is an indemnity fund by the government, which is around 500 million. I think it's in the law. So that we can revisit that. And it's actually in the law. I think it's section 8 of RA 1195 with regard to the indemnity fund for the government. Just in case something happens, there's a 5 million fund there that we can use.
So are you saying then if you revisit this law, that means the fund amount could be increased?
Yes, it can be increased because I think it's not enough.
All right, Congressman, we would really like to thank you for your views and your insights on these latest developments on procuring vaccines. Congressman Ronnie Ong from the Ang Probinsyano Party-list.